All right. Starting a new week, starting a new stream. I've got up on screen here. Let me mute myself so I don't hear that echo. Okay, so I've got here. Let me get my face out of here real quick. There you go. I've got up here. I kind of changed things up today. I didn't really know. Auth is such a weird thing. We just like barely scratched the surface last week before we had to finish up for the day. But I wanted to. It's hard because it's hard to find like discrete pieces of work we can fit into an hour meaningfully and get stuff done. So I made the executive decision that we're going to do some bad stuff at the beginning. Just note, we're going to note what they are, and then as time goes on, we'll solve them. So today we're going to start by trying to set up a way to authenticate inside of our API. So this is like one half of auth is authenticating, so like logging in. The other half is going to be or authorizing. Do I have this backwards? Yes, I think I have this backwards. It's a way to authorize on our API. I think. No, that's right. Authenticate. So half of it is logging in, making sure the person is who they say they are. The other half is only giving them information, only giving a certain user the information they're entitled to once we know who they say they are. So logging in, verifying they're who they say they are, that's authentication. Making sure they only get the information they're entitled to is authorization. I think I got that right. Maybe I got that wrong. Let me know if not. Actually, let me make sure I have chat open here. I got to figure out a better way of having this set up so I can like show the chat on the screen. I haven't figured that out yet. I gotta check into what's it called? So I'm using OBS for my streaming. There's like Streamlabs OBS I was looking into that looks like it might have some better tools for this. Anyways, so that we'll be focusing on that verifying people are who they say they are piece for now. So we'll be doing that by setting up this stuff on the API. We'll walk through that when we get to it. Next piece is going to let a user log in via our web client. So just pretty much giving a form. We're going to be doing stuff where we'll save an access token to local storage, and then we'll create like an interceptor to make sure that always gets sent to our API with requests that require it. And then at the end, we'll just make a note of all the bad things we're going to do today, because we're going to allow some security stuff to come in, and we'll just kind of knock those out as we go along. So that's kind of the game plan. I was on our NX office hours today, and I noted that I like to start out looking at what we're going to do today, looking at what we're going to like the next steps in terms of this depth graph, because I think it's a really good tool to have like a map of what's going to happen. So we can see right now, last week we added this new node to it called the backend Mongo. So it's creating a backend Mongo client for our API stuff. Today we're actually going to make a couple new libs in here, one for the front end called auth and one for the back end called auth. And I think actually the way we'll have it set up after the end of today, unless we get into authorization a little bit, until we get into authorization, auth should just be a sibling of this backend contents post for now. And eventually, though, once we have authorization, when we finish that probably won't be today. Just because we got so much we're going to try to accomplish today. But once we have that, the idea is this would be like a middleware, a piece of express middleware that we could bring into sort of this API section of things so that, like for instance, when someone's going to request a post, first part of the middleware there is we'll authorize to see if they have access to that post, or will part of the authorization is at least going to be attaching inside of that request handler the proper user to say this is the person who's requesting it. And then we may need some further middleware to say, well, does this person who we know who this person is, does this person have the access to this specific post? That may be something actually specific to the content post itself, but we'll get to that when we get to it. But just to clarify here again, we'll have like auth be a new dependency of the API. We'll also have, as part of the web client, auth being a new dependency to that web client. So it would probably be around here. And this web client, or this new module for auth, we're probably going to want it to hook into our NGRX actions. So we're going to be dispatching an action for requesting a login or trying to log in. And of course, there'll also be some pieces here in the utils. So that's kind of the plan. I've got some knocking at the door, so I'm going to go mute for just a second. I'll be right back. Let me transition. All right, back. Sorry about that. So let's jump in and let's start looking at authenticating in our API. So let's full screen this. I'm going to make things a little bit smaller. And we're going to go to, well, first, let's see. We're going to create a user interface in our models. So we've already got our content post utils here. I'm wondering if eventually, for now, so this is kind of acting as like our bucket of models here, and this is only content posts at the moment. I'm just for now, we can maybe look to structure this different later. But we're going to create this user.interface.ts file in here. And we'll create this interface here for now. So we'll say export interface user. User is going to have an ID, which is a string, and a name, it's a string. And eventually we'd probably want like a profile, picture, URL, be another string. Eventually probably we want some sort of bio, be a string of some sort, or maybe like some other data object. But for now, we'll just stick with this. We'll make sure inside of our index that we're exporting this. Star from lib/user interface. There we go. And now we'll go into, let's have our markdown file open to the side here. So this is kind of done. Probably want to make some more like a Mongo user eventually here, but this is, for now, is pretty much done. We'll create a backend auth-lib. So we're going to generate a new lib with node using the narwhal node. We'll call this auth. The directory is going to be backend. And I think that's all I want. There we go. So I'll run that. We should see we get a lot of new stuff created here. There we go. And mark that as done. I need like a checkbox app, like a to-do app. That's what the world needs, is more to-do apps. All right, so we're going to create a function to create an access token and store it on our DB. So as a first step to this back-end auth thing, So here's what we've got so far in our libs. I'm going to, oops, that's not what I wanted. I'm going to make a new file here. We're just going to call this create auth, or create access token.ts. Let's move this tab over here. So the idea for this is we are going to export a function called create access token. So this is going to be an async function where we're going to take some sort of user. We'll just put any for now. And based on that user, we're going to create a new access token. We'll just do like this for now. And then we are going to await Mongo. Let's import Mongo from Zach Livestream front end, back end Mongo. There we go. It doesn't like this. Why doesn't it like this? Huh. All right, I don't know, but let's just leave that for now because I'm pretty sure. Let me try restarting. Maybe that will do it. All right. Then we'll use Mongo collection of. Let's see what we got here. Oh, let's go. Actually, before we go further and talk about the collection, let's add some more things to our user interface here. So we're going to do some export a type here. Call it Mongo user with ID for just a name as a string. So this is going to be slightly different than the actual user interface. Really the only difference is rather than an ID that's a string, it's going to have an underscore ID that's going to be an object ID. So we'll just have that as a type we can use here. Now I'm also going to create export type access token. Let's call this a Mongo access token. Let's call this with ID. And we'll give this a user ID, which is an object ID. We'll give it a access token, which is just going to be a string, so kind of like a random string, but one that we'll use to verify people at, and a created app date. There we go. I think that gives us more of what we're going to need here. So the idea for creating this access token, the foo here right now is just going to generate some sort of random string. We're going to await putting into a collection of Mongo access tokens, and we're going to need to import Mongo access token from live stream content utils. Go dot. Let's see. We're going to want to insert one here. Insert one. So we'll take the user ID. This is going to be user dot underscore ID. Put in our access token. This is the random string, and our created at, we're just going to make a new date. There we go. And then we're going to return the access token. There we go. Let's see, does it not like something here? Collection. Oh, I'm forgetting to add the name of the collection here. Created type safety comes in for the win. Speaking of type safety, let's change this. So this is actually going to be a Mongo user we'll need, because we'll actually need the user's underscore ID here. And now for foo, what I'm going to do for this is I'm actually going to npm I, this is the UUID package, as a way to create this sort of random string here. Cool, so that's in. So I'm going to import, we'll use the version 4 of that thing as UUID from UUID. Go, did that. Then we'll run v4. No, I don't want to call it v4. I want to call UUID. There you go. So this, let me npm I-d. I think I can just do types /UUID. This will give me types for this, so I can know. This should be a string coming out of here, creating the access token. We're kind of storing it into the Mongo database here, which is not great design. This is I don't know if it's a security issue. I don't think it is, but I think normally you'd use like Redis or something a little quicker for storing these access tokens. But let's see. So we got that here now. Let's see. When we see access token, that's any still. Does this still not have typings? Let's find restarting. So if we can get some typings from that. If not, we'll just move on. Okay. Oh, there we go. So we could give it some options, but for now we're just kind of creating that string. I think this is sufficient for now. This will give us a way of creating an access token and setting it. So this kind of accomplishes this task right now. Next is creating a login endpoint. So we'll say we're working on this one here. All right. So while I'm here, let's get rid of these. Move to trash. New file. We're going to call this login.ts. Cool. And okay, so we're going to say for this export login is a request. Oh, constant login is a request handler. I think I have to import request handler from Express. All right, there you go. Equals, we'll make this async with the request and a response. Okay, so we are going to assume we're doing bad stuff and assume we're passing the password, just plain text from the body for today. So we're going to make this equal to the request body. There we go. And then we are going to find the Mongo user that matches this. So we're going to await mongo.collection of Mongo user for users dot find one. All right. So for our filter here, we're going to want to do it so that the username is equal to, well, I think we can just do like this. Password, it's like that. So let's adjust our user interface here. So we'll have a name. The name will be kind of the display name, we'll say, but we'll also have associated with that sort of like a private username. So this is a username that's someone would log into, but we wouldn't actually expose what that username is to the client. So this wouldn't be considered public information. Then we'll also have their password here, which is a string. Again, you shouldn't do this, but just bear with me for now. Okay, so we will, and again, we won't want to pass these through, even today. We're gonna make sure when we get a user back, like when we send back a user at the end of this login, we want to make sure we're not sending that password there. So anyways, okay, so we're going to find a user who has a matching username and password, and that'll give us our user. So let's see, that should be a Mongo user, which looks good. And we're going to say if we have a match. Actually, let's say if we don't have a match first. We are going to send res.error send. We'll have a result of error. We'll have some reason that says invalid username or password. There we go. And then we're going to return. So handled the case where no one's logged in here. So now we can assume that we have the Mongo user and they're valid. So we're going to create a user now. User is equal to, which is a user. So we're going to have an ID here, which is equal to our Mongo user. Get their ID to hex string, so we can get our string. And we're going to have their name is equal to Mongo user dot name. There we go. What doesn't it like about this? Let's add it here. I guess that user was some other kind. But yeah, so now we have our user that we're going to send across the line, and we're going to response.send result success. We're going to give an access token, which is a string. Cool. Not a string, sorry. Gonna send the access token. Oh, which we need to call our thing first here. So we're going to say, now that we have our user, we are going to create our access token with that function we just created. So we're going to call create access token. Going to pass it this user, pass it the Mongo user rather. There we go. We'll need to await this because I'm pretty sure that's returning the promise. Yes. Sure, it's a promise of a string. Yeah. So now we have our access token as one thing. We also want to send our user as a second thing. So there we go. Well, while we're looking at this, let's create our interface here inside of the user stuff. So we're going to export a login interface. Let's make it a type actually. Login response body. So this is going to be one of two things. We're going to have a result, which is an error, and we're going to have a reason, which is a string, or we're going to have result is, oops, not return, result is a success. In the case where we have a success, we're going to have an access token as a string. We're going to have a user as a user. There you go. So, probably should adjust this generic. So let's see if we can do that. How are we doing on time? I'm going to leave this for another day. I think we want to adjust this request handler with some generics to make sure that what it's returning is one of these. I'm not going to do that just now though, because I want to try to get through all the stuff we have set out. So we have this login endpoint right now, which is going to get a username and password. Find a user. If no user, we're going to let them know, hey, this failed. If we do get a user, we're going to kind of build the user information we're going to send over. We're going to create an access token, stick it in the database. Remember, this is sticking it into the database, and then we're going to send back the information the client's going to need to do its stuff. So that's that. We'll mark it for done now. We'll kind of have to make sure everything's working later once the client's set up. And now we're going to create and export a router for our auth to be consumed by our app. So let's come back here to the backend auth lib, and we'll make a new file here, and we'll call it router.ts. We're going to export, let's see, export constant router equals express.router. Make sure we get an express up in here. Import star as express. Express. Go. There's our router. We're going to have our router use the body parser.json so we can parse through bodies on the requests that come in. So when we hit submit, we're going to need to stick the login information into the body just as a JSON. This is just letting us parse that out. And then we're going to have a router.post, call it login. This is going to use that login request handler. Made, there we go. There we go. And I think that's all we need for now. For this, let's go back to the app and make sure we're using that. I want this in main. To main in my snippets here and see what's wrong with main. Okay. Go. Okay, so we're going to have up here import router as auth router from Zach livestream backend auth. There we go. What does it like? Oh, because I'm not exporting this. Let's make sure. Star from lib/router. And get rid of this. There. So the only thing we want to really expose from this lib is the router for now. I think when we make the middleware, we'll probably want to expose that too, but we don't want to expose this create access token. That should all be handled internally to the router module. Same as the login request handler. Should just be handled locally. So we are exporting our router now. So now we have a router here. So now we pretty much just want to use router.use. We'll call this auth. Use the auth router. There we go. I think that's all we need right now. So I think I have these things running already. It doesn't like this. Let's restart the API. I have to figure out what these issues are eventually. Body parser is not defined. Did I not import that? Let's see if we can jump right into that. Router auth lib body parser is not defined. Body parser. Oh, let's see. How did we do this in the other router? Let's just search everything for body parser. Boom, boom. Let's just do it. I think that's the issue, the way we're trying to import it. It's weird that. So that was, I think that was just me using like the auto import. It's weird that came in that way. Okay. Conditional exports. Okay. Alrighty. I think this is all right. I think this looks like it's working-ish. We'll have to do our client stuff to verify. So let's say this is done for now. We'll get started on the other half of the stuff because we got to make up some time. All right. Let's create a front-end auth lib. Let's do that. So we'll generate a lib. We want an Angular lib using Narwhal's Angular schematic. We're going to call the lib auth. Going to get rid of that weird thing. Directory is front end. And all this stuff we can just leave out for now. We'll hit run. Should see a bunch of stuff pop up. There we go. And we'll start with a login form component. So let's generate a component. And so we're going to call this login. Name of the project is front-end auth. Marginal should be able to find that. We'll use SCSS. Who are we kidding? We're not really using styles right now, but well, at least get that in. So when we do add styles, it'll be in my preferred SCSS. We'll make it export for now because I'm not really sure how we're going to want to do this yet. I imagine the way we'll set it up is we'll export it and then we'll just use it inside of the app component. I think that'll work for now. Let's go ahead and run that. Get our new files created for us. And let's see, inside of auth here, we have our auth component, HTML, and inside of here we'll have this stuff. Alright, so the goal again, we're just creating a login form. We don't have the service yet, so we'll just say here is a form. This is a new form group. Make sure we're importing form group from Angular Forms. Go inside of the module. We'll need to make sure we're importing forms module and reactive forms module. In this new form group, we're going to have a username. It's a new form control, and we'll have just put a required on there. Have password is a new form control. Required again. Go. I think that's all we need for now. And inside of this login form, we're going to have a form, form group is equal to that form. We'll have an ng submit, call it submit for now. So we'll need to add down here, submit login. Just does nothing for now. Let's get rid of some of this extra stuff. Don't need on init. There we go. There we go. So we're going to have a label. call it username. This will be for username, and then we'll have an input. ID is username. Form control name is username. And I think that's good enough for now. And we'll do another label here. Now let's just copy this stuff. Password. Form control name is pass. You know, probably should have done this a while back, but that's okay. We've still got 2 birds with 1 stone. There we go. Form control name. This is all set. And then we'll have a button type is submit. And we'll say disabled, and we'll use that our form group form.valid should be disabled if the form is not valid. Go. And whoops, want to make sure this input is actually type password. There we go. I think that's just about right. Going to want to, looking at the things we're going to want to do here, before I fill out what the submit log is, let's just put for now, we'll just do a little console log here. Hey Brandon, how you doing, man? We'll console log out this .form value. Just make sure that's working. Let's make sure, is this any of this broken? Restart the client. Actually, we got to make sure we're not using this yet. Let's throw this at the top of the top of our app. So inside of I'm in the API. I want to be in the web client. I want to jump into the app component for now. Oh, this is probably going to give it the bad thing again. Let's jump into the workspace JSON libs backend libs. Let's see. How did this happen? Web client, API, utils, backend content posts, Mongo, backend auth, front end auth, prefix. I'll fix this to be our circle. Save that. Let's jump back to our component, make sure this is fixed. I gotta remember to do this next time I make a new lib. There we go, selector. Now inside of here, our circle login, I think is all we'll need. Go. Doesn't like it. What's wrong with it? What's wrong with it? Oh, I know why. Because we're not importing it in the app module. So we're going to grab that. Inside of our app module, we are going to import and import front end auth module from Zach front end auth. There we go. Now inside of our app component, the red's gone. Let's see. Don't see it. Let's cancel, restart. Or would we see it there? I'm not sure. Do we have any errors? Oh, there it is. Just wasn't set up yet. See, I'm really good at aesthetics. We'll fix that up later. But let's say we have some sort of test and some sort of test. We submit. We should see console log out these things now. So we've got a form. If something's missing, we've got that showing. We should probably at some point tell people what the actual error is, but I won't. Let's not do that until we actually style these things properly. It looks like that label though. Accessibility is another thing. When I click on this password, it should focus this. It's working for the username. I must have done something bad in the template. Let's see. That's a capital P. Let's make sure. Okay, making sure we have good bones to our HTML, even if things don't look great yet. So there we go. That's working. Next thing we're going to want to do is looking at our markdown file. We're going to want to create a service for logging in and storing our access token into local storage. So let's look at that. We'll create a new service. We're going to call this auth service. It's going to go in our front end auth project. We're going to make it flat. We're going to skip tests for now. It's easy enough to add those in afterwards. So I'll just create our one new file. Now inside of here we have our auth service. We're going to get rid of this. I'm never going to provide en route if I can ever help it. So we have our auth service. We're going to want to have a private HTTP client in here, which is an HTTP client. Not what I wanted. Go import HTTP client from Angular comment. Make sure that's it's coming in the module too. HTTP client module. Very good. All right. So we're going to want to have a login method here. Trying to think. Probably just want a request body. Let's actually define that down here inside of our shared user interfaces here. So we have the login response body. All right, let's make a login request body. Login. Let's just make this an interface. And request body. Username is a string. Password is a string. Again, not super complicated, but the idea is eventually we're not going to want to send over a password in plain text over this. We're going to want to send like a hashed password. So we'll probably adjust this later, but for now we'll say our request body is a login request body. Spell it right and import it. Login request body from our personal X stuff. Go. And that's going to give us an observable of a login response body. There we go. So we have observables. All right, and so we're going to take our HTTP client. We're going to do a post. The URL is going to be API/auth/login, and the body is going to be our request body. And this will give us a response of a login response body. There we go. and we want to return that. I think that's what I want to do. So this is the idea for the service is we're providing a method that is just going to it's kind of just wrapping up some of these details rather than directly injecting the HTTP client. So this will give us a way of doing this. The other thing we're going to want to do is we're probably inside of this auth service we're going to want to give a way to set or remove an access token. So we'll call this set access token given an access token which is a string. We're going to want to return void. And this is just going to take local storage dot set item. We'll call this key access token. Value is the access token. Remove access token. Pass it in nothing and returns void. Local storage dot remove item is what I want really. And let's actually define this up here as a constant. Access token key access token. That'll be better. Token key, and we're going to need a get access token return local storage dot get item access token key. Boom. All right. Let me see how I did this in my snippets here. Auth service. I think when I log in, do I tap here? We could tap here. So whenever we get like success, we could just set that access token right away. I don't think that's the best way to do it though. Let's see. Yeah, I think I will tap for that actually. I think I am doing that in my snippets here. Let's do that for now. Maybe there's a better way to do this down the line. But we're going to tap on here. Tap, tap, tap. It's not in here yet because this is a new lib. It always takes VS Code a while to figure that out. From rxjs/operators. Tap. So we're going to have some sort of response. And that response should be a request login body. So we'll say if response result equals error. We actually don't want to do anything, so we'll just return. But now my response.result should evaluate to success every time. So it knows we're in the success mode. TypeScript knows we're in the success mode. So we're going to call this.set access token. And we're going to set response.access token. There we go. I think that's all we really need to do. Yeah, I think that works. We kind of don't need the access token after this. So I'm almost wondering if I need to like remove it. That's what I'm doing in my snippets is I'm like mapping to remove the access token out. I think I'll just leave it for now here. I think that's fine. So there's our login stuff. We've got about 10 minutes left until the end. I think we're going to go over a little bit though because I want to get this done. Let's see where we're at for this. We've got our service that's done. And we want to create an HTTP interceptor for inserting that access token into requests. let's look at what that all will entail. Is there? I think there's a schematic for an interceptor. Let's see. Yeah, let's do that. We're going to call this the set auth header, and we're going to do that in front end auth. There we go. Flat. Skip tests. Nobody need no tests. I mean, we do, but we'll do it in end-to-end stuff. All right, so we'll create our new auth interceptor. Let's run it. And there it is. There she blows. So we have a set auth interceptor in places the HTTP interceptor. We're going to inject into this that auth service we just made, private auth service. Is an auth service. And then what we're going to want to do is HTTP event if unknown. I think that's all fine. So we're going to say here's our token. It's equal to our auth service.get access token. If request.url starts with, so if this doesn't start with API for now, we're going to want to make sure the access token isn't on there. So we'll say if we're not going to the API, or if there's no such token, we are just going to next.handle the request. So the idea is pretty much if we're not going to our API, if there's no token, then just kind of handle this as you would. Don't even intercept is essentially what we're saying at this point. However, if we are going to the API, if there is a token, then we're going to want to create our new headers. So that is equal to request.headers. So the old headers, whatever they may be, and we're going to set on those this authorization with the token. And then return next.handle with request and clone it to use our new headers. There we go. Cool. So what this is doing is pretty much when we need an authorization header, we are going to set it. So this is now done at inside of our module. We're creating the interceptor. I believe we're going to want to take this interceptor and put it into our app module as a provider. So let's do that real quick. So go to the app module, and we're going to add to our providers here oh wait, we probably don't want to put this in the app level. We probably want to just do this in the module so that when we import the module like we're doing here, it just kind of comes in. I think that makes more sense. Let's do that. So we'll do this here. We'll have our providers. Oh, and we want to make sure to add a provider for that auth service, because we removed the pieces of that's provided in root. So now we're going to provide the HTTP interceptor token. We're going to use class the set auth header interceptor, and multi is true. I think we want that. There we go. That's all set. I think that's set up to work now. So I think the test for this would be we are going to go back to our app. We're going to open up the networks tab. We're going to see if we're setting an authorization header. Let's see about that real quick. So inside of networks here, we're going to create a new post, submit. We can see in the headers here, we're not setting something yet. It's because we're not logged in. Okay, we're actually, let's go back here and we'll open up inside bash here. Let's just Mongo and we'll use our circle and we're going to say db.users.insert1. Okay, if name is Zach DeRose. Username is Zach. Password is password. I think that's all we need here. Let's try that. Alright, so now if we db users.find, we'll see it created me in there, gave me my display name, gave me my username, set my password, and it gave me my object ID. So now I should be in there, so if I log in, Brandon, I missed your stuff there. What were those eyes about? I don't even know. I gotta be better at looking at chat. We got our username. Username had a capital Z. Let's make sure we send that. Password was password. No tests. We'll get tests. We'll get tests. We'll have a lot of confidence in this at the end, but it won't be because of unit tests. It'll be because of end-to-end tests. It's a promise I keep kicking down the road. All right, so submitting this, we're still just logging this out. So we want to make sure inside of our login component here, rather than this, we'll have constructor with a private auth service. Is an auth service. 3 minutes left. We can do this. This dot auth service dot login, and we are just going to pass it the form dot value. This dot form dot. Wouldn't it be nice to have type safety around this right now? It would, but well, someday we'll get that. All right. So now let's try this. So we're going to have, well, first let's put some bad stuff in here. If we do this, we hit submit. Is that not? Oh, because we need to subscribe. Let's do it that way. There we go. So test, submit. Went to login, got a 404. That's probably not what we want. Probably don't want a 404. API auth login. Is that what we set up on the API? Let's see. Says of the API login. It's there. Post to login. Let's just need a slash. Maybe that's what it was. Let's try that again. Finish building. Submit. Okay, so we got a 200, but we should see the error, and the reason is invalid username or password. I don't think we should actually send a 200 there. We should probably send something else, but I'm not going to worry about that for now. So in that case, we just kind of stayed into our state here. Hit submit. Nothing's really changing. But if we did this where we actually provided a proper username and password, hit login, and now we should see, here's our stuff in here, which has all this. If we go to network and we create a new post with a test, we should see the response was going to work either way because we're really not doing the other side. And then we have our content, but in terms of our header, there we see we have our new authorization, which is the same authorization code that we got here, I think. Yes, I think that's right. Just eyeballing it. B189. B189. Yep. So I think we kind of did what we set out to do. I would have loved, so maybe this is stuff we can do next time, but I'd love to bring in the NGRX store here to dispatch actions, be able to set like our current user, whether we're logged in or not. So kind of at this top level, we can only show this form at the top here if someone needs to log in. If someone's not logged in too, we should probably not show them any posts yet. So we can kind of all set that up on the client side. But then we'll also need to, so now that we kind of have this access token coming in with all of our different requests, we can add some authorization onto our create post. 200s plus errors equals death. Yes, we'll have to fix that. I'll make sure. Let me add that right now to all the things. So I have like a list of terrible, bad, awful things we did here. 200 for login error. I have to look up what the right one is for that. But yeah. We are storing a plain text password in memory, so we're kind of sending outside of that component. Like you'll see, we passed that password. The value of the password field got passed through a couple places, which could potentially expose something there if like there's some logging being done on that kind of stuff. Like the kind of the security vulnerability here you think of is like, what if this is like a common computer being used? And it's like, even if someone never closes down the tab, like we could possibly see, like if we were dispatching an action with the password, for example, you could see that in your tooling. You never want to let that, really you don't want to let that password ever go further than the form value, if possible. And there's some ways. Eventually, I'd love to do like some nonce-based authorization. So, like when we authorize, we'll send like a one-time hash from the server to the client. Hash the value of that password field right then and there. So we're never using the plain text password in our memory. We're also sending that plain text password over the wire. HTTPS kind of takes care of a man-in-the-middle attack there, but you never know if by the time it gets over to the server side, if there's something over there that could be doing stuff. Again, you also want to consider public browsers or public terminal where people are sharing it, and can kind of just like use F12 just to kind of steal someone's password that way. So we're going to try to protect against that eventually if we can. This one's a big one, which we're doing right now. We're storing the plain text password in our database. So the idea with this is if anyone got in, like if someone got root to our server, we're kind of effed anyways, but we're hurting our users even more, because it's likely that all of our users are using common passwords, and we'll have all their passwords kind of available in the database if it gets hacked. So if we for whatever reason, if our user data gets out, we potentially ruined all those users' lives. if they're using it for like their base passwords and stuff like that. So at least by doing this, by not storing a plain text password and just storing a hash in our database, we can remove some of that stuff. There's access token stuff right now. I don't even know if the access token method that we're using right here is the best for our use case. It kind of works out all right. Right now we're not invalidating that access token ever though. Eventually we'll get like a logout endpoint that'll erase tokens. Eventually we'll want to do like either some sort of cron job or something to remove older access tokens based on their created date, to basically just invalidate them. And like Brandon pointed out, we were sending a 200 for a login error, which is not a great idea. But we'll get to that. So these are stuff we'll be building up into our backlog of stuff we can do next time. But yeah, for next time we can bring in some NGRX stuff into our auth, give us some state that way, and that'll be really convenient to use for future stuff. Whether we can even show someone whether they can create a post or not, and kind of base that off of their user information, and whether they're authenticated or not. So I think that's a good stopping point for today. We got through the whole laundry list of stuff we said we'd do. Let's mark this one as done because we saw that working. So there we go. Initial authentication is in the books with a whole bunch of terrible stuff we did today. But we'll fix it. We'll fix it as time goes on. So thanks y'all for coming. Look forward to tomorrow.